Hello guys, welcome you all. Before we start the discussion on the love hypnosis, kindly follow us for regular updates. With the hope that you have subscribed, let's start today's discussion.
It's great to be here. The topic for today's deep dive is, it's one of those things that seems incredibly simple on the surface.
Right. It sounds a bit like a motivational poster almost.
Exactly. But when you actually start to peel back the layers, when you look at the principles and the human stories behind it, it's profound. We're really talking about the very mechanics of how our reality is shaped.
The mechanics of reality. That's a bold statement.
It is, but I think it's accurate. We're exploring the transformative capacity of the human mind. The whole theme, this idea of a love hypnosis, is really just a poetic way of describing a process.
A process of what exactly?
A process of training your mind to fall in love with life, to expect the best from it. And the strange part is, when you do that consistently, life itself seems to shift to meet those expectations.
I like that image. It suggests we're not just, passengers on a bus watching life go by.
Not at all.
We're more like the driver, or maybe even the person who designed the bus in the first place.
Precisely. You're the projector, not just the audience watching the film.
Right.
And the sources we're drawing from today are so fascinating because they bridge that gap between what you might call spiritual wisdom and really practical, actionable techniques.
So it's not just think happy thoughts.
Far from it. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts. We'll talk about the psychology of faith, almost the physics of optimism, and some very specific methods for banishing worry. This is the how-to guide.
The how-to guide for what? Generating limitless energy?
Yeah.
Curing that feeling of not being good enough.
All of that. And this idea of emptying the mind to create power. It's a full toolkit. But I think we have to start where all the material starts, at the very beginning.
The foundation.
The foundation, which is, and can only be, self-belief.
The material is very, very direct about this. It essentially says that success, happiness, any kind of achievement, it's all impossible without it.
It's a non-starter. You can't build a skyscraper on a swamp.
But I want to zero in on a specific phrase that's used because I think the nuance is critical.
Yeah.
It says we need a humble but reasonable confidence.
Yes. That distinction is everything, isn't it?
It is, because when people hear confidence, they often think of arrogance, the loudest person in the room.
Right, the chest thumping, I'm the greatest kind of attitude. But that's not what we're talking about. In fact, that kind of behavior is usually a mask.
A mask for deep insecurity.
Absolutely. True confidence, that humble but reasonable kind, is quiet. It's a steady internal knowing. It's not about thinking you're better than everyone else. It's about knowing your own strengths, being honest about your weaknesses, and just trusting that you have the inner resources to handle what life throws at you.
But here's the problem, and the sources spend a lot of time dissecting this. Most of us don't operate from that place.
No, we operate from the opposite place.
The inferiority complex.
It's the great plague of the modern mind, that nagging, persistent feeling of, I am not enough, I'm not smart enough, not talented enough, not attractive enough, not worthy enough.
And what's really interesting is the dive into where this comes from. It's not something we're born with.
No, it's learned. It's almost always programmed into us, usually in childhood.
It's incredibly how those early experiences create a kind of a mental echo that can last a lifetime.
It's true. You could be a 50-year-old CEO, a leader in your field, but a part of your brain is still that 7-year-old kid who was picked last for the team in the schoolyard.
The sources list some classic examples, like being compared to a sibling.
Oh, that's a huge one. Your older brother was the smart one, so you became the creative one, which you internally translated to mean the not-so-smart one.
Or your sister was the pretty one.
Exactly. And you internalize these labels. They become part of your identity. Or it could be something physical, being teased for being too skinny or too heavy or having glasses. These seemingly small things carve deep grooves in our self-perception.
So let's connect the dots. Why does this matter in a practical sense? Beyond just, feeling bad about yourself. What's the real-world consequence?
The consequence is projection. This is where it stops being a feeling and starts being a force in the world.
The force.
Yes. If you feel defeated on the inside, you project that energy outwards. Your posture, your tone of voice, your eye contact or lack thereof, it all sends a subconscious signal to the world.
And that signal is what, exactly?
The signal says, I don't expect to win. Don't bet on me. I'm probably going to fail. And the universe, being quite literal, tends to respond to the signals we send. It reflects our own expectations back at us.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You walk into a job interview expecting to be rejected.
So you're hesitant, you don't sound confident in your answers, your body language is closed off.
And then you get rejected. And you tell yourself, see, I knew I wasn't good enough.
When in reality, you attracted that outcome. You repelled the very thing you wanted. There's a story in our research stack that just perfectly illustrates this whole dynamic. It's about a businessman who's facing a massive high-stakes deal.
Let's break that one down, because I think everyone at some point has felt that kind of make-or-break pressure.
So, this man is in his 40s. He's traveled to another city for what he calls the most important business deal of his life. The future of his career, in his mind, hinges on this one meeting.
That's an incredible amount of pressure to put on yourself.
It's crushing him. He's literally falling apart in his hotel room the night before. He's pacing, he can't sleep, and his thoughts are just a torrent of negativity.
What's he telling himself?
I'm gonna fail. I can't do this. The other side is too smart. If I blow this, I'm finished. He's just marinating in a soup of despair and failure. He is vibrating with the frequency of defeat.
He's already lost the deal in his own mind long before he even walks into the room.
100%. He is projecting failure so intensely that it's almost a certainty. So in his desperation, he reaches out for advice. He knows he's in a death spiral.
And the advice he gets is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not what you'd expect. It's not about business strategy.
No, they don't tell him to review his numbers or practice his pitch. The first piece of advice is just to change his perspective on the stakes.
What do they tell him?
They tell him to relax. They basically say, look, if you succeed, that's great. If you fail, tomorrow's another day. The world will not end.
That almost sounds too simple, doesn't it? Like, hey, don't worry about it. But I guess when you're in that state of extreme panic, maybe simple is what you need.
He needed someone to pop the balloon of his anxiety. He had inflated this one event into a life-or-death scenario, and that level of stress causes mental and physical paralysis. By reframing it as just another day, the advisor gave him an escape hatch from that pressure cooker.
But they didn't just stop there. They gave him a tool, a practical technique.
Yes, this is the mechanic for reprogramming the subconscious mind. He was given a specific phrase, an affirmation to repeat.
I can do all things.
That's the one. And the instructions were very specific. He had to say it out loud over and over before he went to sleep that night.
Why before sleep? What's the significance of that timing?
Well, the thinking is that in that drowsy state just before you fall asleep, the conscious mind, the part of your brain that's critical and analytical, starts to power down. The gatekeeper goes off duty.
And that leaves the subconscious mind more open to suggestion.
Exactly. It's like planting a seed in fertile soil. If you plant the thought, I can do all things, right before you sleep, it gets to germinate in your subconscious all night long without the conscious mind trying to uproot it with doubt.
And he was also told to repeat it on the way to the meeting.
Yes, that's the active part of the process. As he's walking down the street, his brain is naturally going to be screaming at him, you're not ready, you're going to choke.
The inner critic.
The inner critic.
Yeah.
By audibly repeating the positive phrase, he's actively jamming that negative frequency. He's not leaving any mental bandwidth for the voice of doubt. He is seizing control of his own internal narrative.
And the outcome is described in very physical terms. The story says he squared his shoulders.
It's a physiological change. He literally walked into that meeting differently. His posture changed. His whole demeanor shifted. He wasn't a desperate man pleading for a deal anymore.
He was a confident man presenting an opportunity.
And that is a completely different energy. He stopped repelling success and started attracting it. And of course, the story ends with him successfully closing the deal.
What's so powerful about that is that nothing external changed. The facts of the deal were the same. The people in the meeting were the same. The only variable that changed was his own internal state.
That's the hypnosis in action. He changed his inner world, and the outer world rearranged itself to match.
Okay, but what about someone who feels like they have, no reason to be confident? That businessman, at least, had a career and a deal to pursue. There's another case study in here that feels even more dire. The man who was 52.
Ah, yes. That story it's incredibly moving. This is a man who came to an advisor in a state of complete collapse. He felt he was, in his own words, all through.
Washed up. Finished.
Yes. He was 52, had lost his business, and his assessment of his life was brutal. He said, I have nothing. I am too old to start over. I have zero assets.
To believe you have zero assets at that age.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying mental space to inhabit.
It's the absolute bottom of the well. Total despondency. So the advisor, very wisely, doesn't argue with him. He doesn't say, no, you're wrong. Instead, he says, okay, let's just do a quick audit. Let's make a list.
This is the asset list exercise.
Right. He starts with a simple question. Is your wife still with you? And the man says, yes, of course. She's a wonderful woman. She would never leave me, no matter what.
And the advisor says,
Okay, write that down. Asset number 1, a loving and supportive wife. Which, let's be honest, is an asset beyond price.
absolutely.
Then he asks, what about your children? The man's face apparently lit up a little. He said, yes, I have 3 wonderful children. They came to me the other day and said, Dad, we don't care about the money. We love you and we'll stand by you.
Wow. So asset number 2, 3 devoted children.
Then the advisor probes further. Any friends? The man admits, yes, he has several good friends who have offered to help him in any way they can. Asset number 3.
It's building up.
Then the advisor asks about his character. Have you done anything dishonest? Is your integrity intact? And the man is firm. My integrity is sound. My conscience is clear.
Asset number 4. You can sleep at night with a clear conscience. That's huge.
It is. Then they go on. His health, it's good. Asset 5, the country he lives in, a land of opportunity. Asset 6, and finally, his religious faith, it's strong. Asset number 7.
So this man who walked in the door claiming, I have 0 assets, is now staring at a piece of paper with 7 of the most valuable assets a human being can possess.
And when the advisor pushed that list across the desk and said, look at that, you seem to be a very wealthy man, the man just broke down and cried. He was stunned. He hadn't lost everything. He had only lost his perspective.
It comes back to that amazing quote from the material. Attitudes are more important than facts.
That is the core lesson of that story. The facts of his life, his bank account, his job title, hadn't changed at all during that 30-minute conversation. But his attitude towards his life, his view of his assets, had been completely transformed.
He went from feeling utterly bankrupt to feeling incredibly rich in the things that actually matter.
And because he started to feel wealthy in spirit, he found the strength and the confidence to go back out and rebuild his material wealth. The internal shift preceded the external one.
It's all about what you choose to focus on. You can stare at the one hole in the wall, or you can look at the 4 solid walls that are still standing.
Precisely. And that leads us perfectly into the next major area of our deep dive. We've laid the foundation of self-belief, but even a confident person can't function effectively if their mind is, well, a chaotic mess.
This is where we get into cultivating peace and energy.
Right, and the central idea here is a big one. A peaceful mind generates power.
You know, I think for a lot of us, especially in our hyper-competitive culture, that sounds completely backwards.
It does, doesn't it?
We associate power with grinding, with stress, with hustle, with a mind that's always racing. We think a peaceful mind is a passive mind, a weak mind.
We've been conditioned to believe that if we're not worrying, we're not being productive. But the analogy used in the source material is so perfect, it's an engine.
Okay.
Think about a car engine. If it's sputtering, vibrating violently, overheating, and making a ton of noise, is that a powerful engine?
No, of course not. That's an engine that's about to break down. It's inefficient. It's wasting most of its energy as heat and friction.
Exactly. A truly powerful engine is smooth, it hums, it runs quietly and efficiently. All of its energy is being directed into forward motion. A mind full of worry, anxiety, resentment, that's the noisy overheating engine. It feels busy, but it's incredibly weak because all its energy is being wasted on internal friction.
Whereas a peaceful mind is that powerful, humming engine. All of its energy is available for creativity, problem solving, and action.
It's a powerhouse. So the critical question becomes, how do we achieve this state? The world is loud. Our phones are buzzing. The news is a constant barrage of crises.
How do we find peace in the middle of all that noise?
The primary technique that's discussed is a practice of emptying the mind.
Taking out the mental trash.
That's a great way to put it. The recommendation is to consciously and deliberately practice this twice a day. You have to actively decide to remove the junk. The fears about tomorrow, the resentments about yesterday, the guilt about things you can't change.
The analogy they use is a vessel, right? A cup.
Yes. You cannot pour fresh, creative, powerful thoughts into a mind that is already full to the brim with sour, negative thoughts. If your cup is full of vinegar, you can't add fresh water. It will just overflow or become tainted. You have to pour out the vinegar first.
That image is so clear. If my mind is occupied with replaying an argument I had this morning or worrying about a presentation next week, I literally don't have the mental RAM available to focus on the task right in front of me.
You're mentally clogged. Your processing power is being used up by background programs of worry and resentment. And there's a very simple, relatable story that highlights this. The one about the conversation at a hotel breakfast.
The ear full of trouble versus the mind full of peace.
Yes, it's a perfect illustration of what we could call mental hygiene. So you have a few people eating breakfast together. One of them looks absolutely terrible. He's exhausted, irritable, eyes are bloodshot. He complains he slept horribly.
And the reason he slept so poorly.
Because the last thing he did before turning out the light was listen to a late-night news broadcast. He just laid there in the dark and absorbed a detailed summary of all the world's crises, tragedies, and conflicts. He went to sleep with an ear full of trouble.
I think we've all done that. Lying in bed, scrolling through bad news on our phones.
We have. And it's like drinking a little bit of poison before sleep. His subconscious mind then spent the entire night wrestling with all that anxiety and fear. It was trying to solve the world's problems while his body was trying to rest and repair. So naturally, he woke up completely depleted.
But another person at the table had a totally different experience.
Completely different. This other man is bright-eyed, energetic, says he slept like a log. And his pre-sleep ritual was the exact opposite. He had cultivated a mind full of peace.
What did he do?
He spent the last half hour of his day reading from calming spiritual texts. He practiced a few minutes of intentional silence. He consciously filled his mind with thoughts of peace, harmony, and gratitude.
It's such a simple choice, but the downstream effects are massive. An ear full of trouble or a mind full of peace. It dictates your entire energy level for the next day.
And to really achieve that peace, the material suggests a specific discipline. They call it the practice of silence.
This sounds intimidating. Do I need to go on a 10-day silent retreat?
No, not at all. The prescription is actually very manageable. It says that every person should insist on having no less than 15 minutes of absolute quiet every 24 hours.
15 minutes. That's it. But absolute quiet. So no music, no podcasts, no audiobooks.
Nothing. Just you and the silence. The idea is that in that stillness, great things can begin to fashion themselves in the mind. It's like having a glass of water filled with mud. If you keep shaking it, it stays murky.
But if you just let it sit, still, on a table,
the mud slowly settles to the bottom and the water becomes clear. Silence allows the mud in our minds, the worries, the frantic thoughts, to settle so we can see things clearly again.
it's true that most of us are almost afraid of silence now. The second there's a quiet moment, in an elevator or waiting in line, we immediately reach for our phones to fill the space.
We're afraid of what we might have to confront if we stop distracting ourselves. But the paradox is that the very thing we're avoiding is the source of our power and clarity. And this connects directly to the next big topic, energy.
Okay, let's talk about energy. Because the central claim here is, for me, one of the most radical ideas in the whole philosophy.
Which is?
That fatigue is rarely physical.
It's a game changer when you really grasp it. Our default assumption is, I'm tired because I worked hard, or I'm tired because I didn't get enough sleep.
And sometimes that's true, right? If you run a marathon, your muscles are physically tired.
Of course. Physical exertion causes physical fatigue. But for the vast majority of us, especially those in knowledge-based work, the exhaustion we feel at the end of the day is not in our muscles. It's emotional. It's mental.
So you're saying we're not tired because of what we did, but because of how we felt while we were doing it.
That's the core idea. The material talks about energy leaks. Imagine your personal energy is like water in a bucket. Emotions like boredom, resentment, guilt, and fear are like little holes drilled in the bottom of that bucket.
You're just leaking energy all day long without even realizing it.
Constantly. A 5-minute conversation where you're filled with resentment towards a colleague can drain more energy than an hour of focused, positive work. The case study of the Midwestern man is a perfect, if extreme, example of this.
This is the man who seemed physically ill.
Yes. He presented with all the symptoms of a serious physical ailment. He was lethargic, had no vitality, shuffled when he walked, spent most of his days in bed. He was convinced he had some terrible, undiagnosed disease.
But the doctors ran every test and couldn't find anything physically wrong with him.
Nothing at all. His body was technically fine. The investigation then turned to his emotional life, and it turned out he was being eaten alive by deep-seated guilt and fear over past events.
He was carrying a huge emotional burden.
Imagine carrying a 50-pound backpack on your shoulders every minute of every day. Of course you'd be exhausted. That's what he was doing emotionally.
And what happened when he dealt with that guilt? When he finally put the backpack down?
His energy returned almost overnight. The physical symptoms of lethargy and weakness just vanished. The energy had been there all along. It was just being consumed by his emotional turmoil.
We see smaller versions of this in our own lives all the time. You can be utterly exhausted after a long day, feeling like you can't even move from the couch.
Ready to collapse.
Then a friend calls with exciting news or an opportunity to do something you absolutely love.
Yeah.
And suddenly, you're not tired anymore. You have all the energy in the world.
That proves it, doesn't it? The energy was never gone. It was just blocked. It was suppressed by boredom or a feeling of pointlessness. The cure for that kind of fatigue is deep, passionate engagement.
Getting lost in something you find meaningful.
Exactly. Being completely engrossed in something you believe in is like plugging yourself directly into a power source. Boredom is profoundly exhausting. Passion is profoundly energizing. There's even a reference to a famous football coach, Knut Rockne.
What was his take on it?
Rockne was adamant that his players could not have sufficient physical energy to win games unless their emotions were under what he called spiritual control.
Meaning?
If a player was emotionally a mess, if they were simmering with resentment or crippled by fear of failure, he believed they would be physically slower, weaker, and less effective on the field. Peak physical performance required inner peace.
That is a fascinating insight for any athlete or performer. To get better physically, you have to work on your emotional state.
Which brings us to two specific emotional habits that are notorious energy drains: fuming and fretting.
I love the old-fashioned sound of those words. Fuming and fretting.
They're so descriptive. Fuming is that explosive boiling over agitation, the kettle whistling. It's the person screaming in traffic. It's a massive, violent release of energy.
And fretting is the opposite in a way.
It is. The material describes fretting as being like a sick child whining in the night. It's not explosive. It's a low-level, constant draining sound. It's the what if that plays on a loop in your head.
One is a bonfire, the other is a slow leak. But both of them are just dissipating your power.
Wasting it, pouring it down the drain instead of using it to move your life forward.
So what's the antidote? Because if you tell a worrier to just stop worrying, it's like telling someone in quicksand to just stop sinking. It doesn't work.
The technique proposed is surprisingly physical. It starts with deliberately slowing down your body. The key phrase is, to go fast, row slowly.
To go fast, row slowly.
I like that. It's counterintuitive.
It is.
But the idea is that you cannot maintain a frantic, agitated mind if you are forcing your body to move with deliberate, graceful calm. The mind and body are a feedback loop. If you reduce the tempo of your movements and your speech, the mind is forced to downshift to match that tempo.
That's something you could do right now. If you're feeling stressed, just decide to walk 20% slower. Talk 20% slower.
And breathe 20% slower. There's also a more structured 6-point relaxation method that's laid out. It's very practical.
Let's walk through it. What's step 1?
Step 1, sit in a comfortable chair. Simple enough. You have to remove physical discomfort first.
Step 2.
Mentally relax your body, starting from your toes and working your way up to your head. You literally have to issue commands. Toes, let go. Ankles, relax. Shoulders, drop.
It's like a mental body scan.
Exactly. Step 3. Visualize your mind as the surface of a lake during a storm with choppy waves and turbulence.
And step 4, I assume, is to calm the storm.
Yes. Watch those waves gradually subside. See the surface of the lake becoming as smooth and placid as glass.
Step 5.
Spend at least a minute just listening to the sounds of silence. Try to hear the space between the ambient noises. It focuses the mind.
And the last step has a specific name.
The semi-supine position. This is for when you can actually lie down. You lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. This simple position takes all the strain off your back muscles and helps to reset the entire nervous system.
It's all about using the body to lead the mind into a state of peace.
That's the key. So now we've built our foundation of self-belief, and we've learned how to calm the mind and plug the energy leaks. Now we can move on to what I think a lot of people are waiting for.
The manifestation part. The creation of outcomes.
Segment 3. The mechanics of outcome creation.
This gets into territory that some people call the law of attraction. But the way it's framed here feels much more psychological and less mystical.
It is. It's presented as a practical law of mental physics. And it all hinges on the principle of expecting the best.
The core idea being that you tend to get what you expect. If you expect the worst shows up. If you expect the best shows up.
And the mechanism is described using the analogy of magnetism. When you expect the worst, you are subconsciously releasing a power of repulsion. You are pushing good things away from you.
How so?
Because you're constantly on the lookout for what could go wrong. You're defensive. You're braced for impact. Your energy is contracted and suspicious, which isn't very inviting, is it?
No, it's not. But if you expect the best,
You release a magnetic force, you draw good things to you, your energy is open, curious, and optimistic. You're looking for the opportunity in every situation, and because you're looking for it, you're much more likely to find it.
the story of the unlucky son really brings this home. I think many people can relate to that feeling of just being chronically unlucky.
It's a powerful story of a self-imposed identity. You have this man whose son seems to have every possible advantage in life. A good family, a top-tier education, financial backing, connections.
Everything you'd think would guarantee success.
And yet he failed at everything he tried. Every business he started went under. Every investment soured. He just seemed to have this black cloud over his head. His father called him unlucky.
It was like he had the Midas touch in reverse. Everything he touched turned to rust.
Exactly. And the father was completely baffled by it. But the turning point came when they stopped looking at the external factors and started looking at the son's internal script, his own deep-seated belief system.
And what was that belief?
He had accepted the narrative that he was unlucky. He went into every new venture expecting it to fail. His internal monologue was a constant stream of, this probably won't work out, or something is bound to go wrong.
He was, without realizing it, meticulously visualizing his own defeat before he even began.
Yes. And when he was finally taught how to reverse that, when he learned the magic of believing and started to consciously, deliberately cultivate an expectation of success, everything changed. The material says his personality fused into a focused power.
I love that phrase, fused into a focused power. It's the difference between the scattered light of a bare bulb and the intense focused light of a laser beam.
And what's amazing is that there is now scientific research that backs up this idea of luck. The sources mention a long-term, 10-year study on this very topic.
And what did it find?
It found that people who identify as lucky or optimistic don't experience better random chance events. The dice don't roll in their favor more often. What happens is they are far better at noticing, creating, and acting on chance opportunities.
So the pessimist is so busy looking down at their feet to avoid stepping in a puddle that they walk right past a $5 bill on the sidewalk.
While the optimist, who is looking around expecting to see something good, spots it immediately. The opportunity was there for both of them. One was programmed to see it, and the other was not.
So an essential part of expecting the best is also making a commitment to refuse to believe in defeat.
This is the active warrior stance of the positive mind. It's adopting the attitude of, I simply don't believe in defeat.
Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean denying reality, right? It's not about pretending problems don't exist.
No, not at all. That would be delusion. It fully acknowledges that obstacles are real. The mountain is there, the wall is solid. But, and this is the all-important difference, it refuses to accept that obstacle as the final word.
It's the difference between saying this is a wall and saying this is the end of the road.
Perfectly put. For the person who refuses defeat, the wall isn't a stop sign. It's just a problem that needs a solution. Do I go over it, under it, around it, or through it?
I found the vacuum cleaner method described in this section to be such a useful tool for dealing with negativity from other people.
Oh, it's brilliant, because we all have to deal with those people, right? The
Yes.
colleagues, or maybe even family members who are just chronic purveyors of doom and gloom, the energy vampires.
So how does the vacuum cleaner technique work?
Well, it's based on the practice of a highly successful man in the source material. When he's in a meeting and his associates start getting pessimistic, he doesn't argue with them or shut them down.
What does he do?
He asks questions. He uses pointed questions to suck the dust, the negativity out of their minds. He'll say things like, okay, tell me more about that. Why do you believe that will happen? What's the worst case scenario here? Get it all out on the table.
So he lets them completely empty their cup of complaints first.
Yes, because you can't pour positive ideas into a mind that's already full of negative ones. He draws out all the pessimism. He lets them air every grievance. And then once they've run out of steam, once the negative dust has been vacuumed up, there's a void.
And he fills that void.
He fills that void with positive, solution-oriented ideas. And because he listened to them first, they're much more receptive. He effectively shifts the entire group's attitude by first clearing the space.
That's a masterclass in emotional leadership. You don't suppress negativity, you extract it and then replace it with something better.
And all of this entire segment really boils down to a fundamental battle in the human mind, the battle between faith and fear. The source material is unequivocal. Fear is the most powerful of all negative thoughts.
It's the ultimate corrosive agent.
It is. But faith is the antidote. And the prescription for overcoming fear is beautifully simple. and terrifyingly direct. Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain.
You can't think your way out of fear. You have to act your way through it.
Action is the only cure. Okay, so this brings us to segment 4. We've talked a lot about mindsets and attitudes. Now we need to discuss the specific tools to support them, spiritual and emotional tools.
And the first tool on the list is a big one: prayer.
It is. But again, it's crucial to understand how this is being framed. The sources make a deliberate effort to move the idea of prayer away from being just a formal, mystical ritual confined to a house of worship.
They present it as a scientific, practical utility, almost like a tool in a toolbox, like a wrench or a screwdriver.
That's the analogy. The primary utility of prayer in this context is that it stimulates the mind in a unique way. It helps you tap into a deeper reservoir of power for creative problem solving.
It's less about asking a deity for a specific outcome and more about tuning your own mind to a frequency where solutions can appear.
Yes, it creates a channel for insight. It quiets the conscious, panicked mind and allows a deeper wisdom to surface. I was really struck by the examples of how this has been used in a business context.
That was surprising, using prayer in a corporate setting.
But it makes perfect sense when you understand the goal. The sources talk about businesses that hold sessions of quiet reflection or prayer. The purpose isn't religious proselytizing, it's to improve teamwork and generate innovative ideas.
It brings a sense of harmony to a group. It's hard to have petty, ego-driven arguments when everyone has just spent 5 minutes in a state of quiet contemplation.
It shrinks the ego. When you're connecting with a higher power or deeper purpose, the squabble over whose idea is better seems suddenly very small, and there's a specific 3-step formula that's offered.
Prayerize, picturize, actualize.
Let's break that down. First, prayerize. This means you clearly articulate the problem and pray about it. You turn it over, you ask for guidance and clarity.
Second, picturize.
This is a vital step of visualization. You have to create a sharp, clear mental image of the desired outcome already achieved. You see and feel the solution, not the problem.
And third, actualize.
You hold that picture in your mind and you work confidently towards it in the physical world. The prayer and the picture provide the blueprint and the energy for the action.
The advice is to pray deep prayers. What does that mean?
It means that for big, deep-rooted problems, a quick, superficial prayer isn't going to cut it. You can't just skim the surface. You have to really go inward to connect deeply with that source of power.
This connects to the broader concept of not trying to do everything on your own, drawing upon a higher power.
This principle is a massive antidote to stress and burnout. The feeling that it's all on me, that I have to handle this all by myself, is absolutely crushing for the human spirit.
So this is about cultivating a sense of partnership.
Exactly. The belief that you are not alone, you have a silent, powerful partner in all your endeavors. The story of the traveling salesman is a perfect practical example of this.
This was the man who had a fear of driving.
A terrible phobia for someone in his profession. And he was also constantly worried about not making his sales quotas, so he was just a bundle of nerves every time he got in the car.
Which, as we've discussed, is an energy that repels success.
Absolutely. So he came up with a very simple, practical technique. He took some small cards and clipped them to the dashboard of his car.
A low-tech solution. I love it.
And on these cards, he wrote out powerful faith-building affirmations. Things like, "If God be for us, who can be against us?"
So as he was driving down the highway, instead of letting his mind spin with thoughts of crashing or failing, his eyes would land on these cards.
Over and over again. It was a constant interruption of his fear-based thought loop. It systematically replaced his pattern of fearful thinking with a pattern of confident thinking.
And a result.
He became calmer and more confident behind the wheel, and because he arrived at his sales calls radiating this newfound confidence instead of nervous fear, his sales figures started to climb.
It's a very tangible application of the idea of surrender.
Yes. The simple practice of saying, "I place this in God's hands," or "I am being guided," releases the incredible tension that comes from trying to micromanage and control every single outcome in your life. It allows you to flow instead of fight.
And that flow brings us to our final segment, which is really about the daily experience of living, happiness, and relationships.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. And the core idea here is that happiness is a choice.
This is another one of those principles that runs counter to our common assumptions. We tend to think of happiness as an outcome, an accident.
Right. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy if I find the right partner. I'll be happy if the sun is shining.
We treat it as something external that happens to us.
But the sources are very clear on this point. Happiness is a habit. It is a discipline. You can and must manufacture your own happiness.
To manufacture it. That's such an active word. It implies it's something you build, not something you find.
You produce it daily, and the method starts the moment you wake up. Before you even get out of bed, you make a conscious decision. I choose to be happy today, regardless of what events may unfold. You set your emotional thermostat for the day.
There's a quote, "The habit of being happy enables one to be freed from the domination of outward conditions." That is such a liberating concept.
It is. It means you no longer have to be a victim of the weather or the traffic or a grumpy colleague. You are carrying your own weather system inside you. If you have inner sunshine, the outer rain doesn't soak you to the bone.
And finally, this all has to exist in the context of other people. Positive relationships.
Because we are social creatures. We don't live in isolation. And the core principle here is beautifully simple. The world is a mirror.
What you send out is what you get back.
If you project bitterness and suspicion, the world reflects that back to you. If you project warmth and love, the world tends to respond in kind. To get people to like you, you must first genuinely like them.
You can't fake it, can you? People have a very sensitive radar for insincerity.
You can. You have to cultivate a genuine interest in and appreciation for other people. The source material suggests becoming a comfortable person.
What does that mean, a comfortable person?
It's someone who is easy to be around. They aren't prickly or defensive. They aren't easily offended. They're a source of calm, not drama. And a key part of that is actively building up the self-esteem of others.
Instead of tearing them down to feel bigger yourself.
And the other major piece of advice is to avoid being an egocentric conversationalist.
Oh, we all know that person.
The one who is just waiting for you to stop talking so they can bring the conversation back to themselves. Oh, you had a tough day. Let me tell you about my even tougher day.
The advice is to just stop doing that. To practice the art of listening, of being genuinely interested in the other person's story. That's the secret to being liked. That's how you become magnetic.
It really is.
Wow. We have really covered a huge amount of territory today.
We certainly have. We've essentially outlined a complete blueprint for a more powerful and positive life.
Let's do a quick recap of that journey. We started at the absolute foundation, didn't we? Believing in yourself.
And specifically doing the work to identify and rewrite those old childhood scripts of inferiority that hold us back.
Then we moved into the engine room, so to speak, calming the mind, practicing the discipline of emptying it of all the sour thoughts.
And learning to plug those constant energy leaks that come from fuming and fretting so we can have more power for the things that matter.
From there, we talked about the actual mechanics of creating the life you want. By expecting the best, you attract the best.
And by adopting that stubborn attitude that refuses to believe in defeat as a final outcome.
Then we looked at the tools for support, using prayer and a connection to a higher power as practical scientific utilities for problem solving and fear reduction.
And finally, we brought it all home to the daily practice of choosing to manufacture your own happiness and becoming a comfortable, positive person who enriches the lives of others.
It all comes back to that central idea, doesn't it? The love hypnosis of life.
It does. If you can learn to love life, to trust it, and to expect the best from it, you seem to hypnotize reality itself into cooperating with you.
That's a beautiful way to summarize it. When you change your internal frequency, the entire song of your life changes. You stop fighting against the current and start flowing with it.
So if we were to boil this all down for someone listening right now, what's the immediate takeaway?
That's a great question. What can they do today?
I think the biggest message is that you have far more agency over your thoughts and feelings than you've been led to believe. You are not a helpless victim of your moods. You are the architect of your mind.
And a good place to start would be what?
Start small. Try the asset list. Sit down for 5 minutes and write down everything you have to be grateful for, everything that's still good in your life. Or try the 15 minutes of silence. Just see what happens.
A powerful place to begin. And as we close, here's a final thought for you to carry with you. We talked about how silence allows great things to fashion themselves. What if the solution to your biggest, most persistent problem right now isn't going to be found by thinking harder about it? What if the answer will only arrive when you stop thinking altogether, just for a few minutes, and create a space for it to appear? What might bubble up from the deep if you just stop trying so hard?
A provocative and powerful question to end on.
This was it on today's book, guys. Kindly subscribe and follow us for more such insights on various books. And also, do not forget to join our social media community to stay in touch and get updated.